Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing great today. So, let's talk about something that just dropped and has the whole Ghost of Tsushima community excited again, the brand new patch 8 for the Director's Cut on PC. Yeah, it's finally here, and this one actually packs some meaningful updates, not just the usual minor bug fixes stuff. If you've been playing Ghost of Tsushima on Steam or Epic, or even if you've been waiting for it to get a bit more polished before jumping in, this update really gives you a reason to check it out again. So, patch 8 for Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut just landed, and the version number you'll see in your launcher is 1053.8. That's the one everyone's talking about. And honestly, it's kind of impressive how Sucker Punch and Nixxes are still supporting this game months after its PC release. If you remember, the port already launched in pretty great shape, but there were still a few lingering issues, especially with the Steam Deck experience and some weird audio and crash bugs that were frustrating a small but vocal part of the player base. Well, this patch seems to target all that and more. Let's start with what's probably the biggest headline feature for a ton of players. The game is now officially Steam Deck verified. That's right, no more of that playable tag, it's fully verified now. This is a huge deal because, let's be real, Ghost of Tsushima is one of those cinematic games that feels incredible when you can just play it anywhere, especially on the go. Before, you could technically play it on deck, but the performance was a bit inconsistent unless you manually tweaked settings, capped frame rates, and messed around with Proton versions. Now, that's all handled automatically thanks to the new deck-specific preset that the developers added with patch 8. If you're running the game on deck now, you'll notice there's a new graphics preset in the options called Steam Deck. This isn't just a renamed low preset, it's an actual custom configuration that balances the visuals and battery life in a really smart way. Shadows, reflections, and textures have been fine-tuned for the deck's hardware, and the UI has been scaled up slightly so it feels comfortable on the smaller screen. They clearly tested it carefully, because text readability was a common complaint from portable players. It's subtle, but makes a noticeable difference. And performance-wise, you can expect a pretty stable 40 to 45 frames per second on the default preset, which is perfect if you're running the deck's screen at 40 Hz. But this update isn't just about Steam Deck. There's another big change that's been causing some confusion online, and that's the separation of the Legends mode, the online multiplayer, from the main Director's Cut. From now on, Ghost of Tsushima Legends is its own standalone DLC on Steam. Don't worry though, it's still free if you already own the Director's Cut. You just have to go into your Steam library, scroll down to the DLC section on the game's page, and make sure that Online Multiplayer Legends is checked and installed. It's a small extra step, but the upside is that Legends now updates independently, which should make patches and cross-platform improvements easier down the line. And yes, before anyone asks, you still need a PlayStation Network account to play Legends. That part hasn't changed. So, if you haven't linked yours yet, you'll need to sign in or create one when you launch the mode. Once that's out of the way, the matchmaking and progression systems all work the same as before. What's cool, though, is that the new standalone approach might hint at Sony testing ways to expand Legends or even make it more of a separate experience in the future. A lot of people have been speculating about that, and honestly, it wouldn't be surprising. Legends has its own fan base at this point. It's easily one of the best co-op modes ever bundled with a single-player story game. Now, speaking of single player, patch 8 includes a handful of important fixes and improvements that help polish the experience even further. The first one worth mentioning is a fix for a really specific but annoying bug in the mission Eternal Blue Sky. Apparently, some players were running into an audio issue during that quest that caused certain sound effects or dialogue lines to go missing or get stuck in a loop. That's now fixed, so if you were holding off on replaying that mission for completion or trophy cleanup, it's safe to go back in. There's also a fix for a crash related to Steam input, which was particularly frustrating for people using custom controller layouts or third-party gamepads. Basically, the game was sometimes crashing when switching between keyboard and controller mid-session, or when Steam input tried to reapply a saved layout. That should no longer happen. So, if you're one of those players who likes to jump between using the deck's controls and an external controller while docked, this fix is going to make your life much easier. Another issue that's been ironed out involves the Epic Games Store version of the game. Some users were reporting startup crashes when using Bluetooth audio devices, things like wireless headsets or earbuds. Turns out there was some weird interaction between the game's initialization and the way Epic handles device priority, which caused the whole thing to crash before even reaching the menu. That's now fixed, so you can finally boot the game up without worrying about your headset killing it before it even starts. Alongside those targeted fixes, the patch notes mentioned general stability and performance improvements. Now, they didn't go into detail about exactly what those entail, but early reports from players suggest smoother frame pacing in busy scenes, especially in areas like the Golden Temple and Yarikawa. Some users also mentioned shorter load times on NVMe drives, although that might just be a nice side effect of back-end optimization. It's subtle stuff, but when you've already got a game that's this visually stunning, every little improvement helps. Another thing worth highlighting is that the AMD FSR Fidelity FX Super Resolution version has been updated to 3.1.4. That's a significant bump because the previous version was a bit behind, and now you get all the benefits of the improved temporal stability and less ghosting that came with the newer FSR builds. If you're using an AMD GPU, this update should give you noticeably cleaner upscaling, especially during fast motion or combat sequences where particle effects used to create a shimmer. Plus, the game now correctly identifies which version of FSR you're using in the launcher and in the settings menu, so you'll actually know if it's pulling from your driver or the in-game integration. What's cool about all these updates is that they show Nixxes is really listening to the community. When Ghost of Tsushima launched on PC, the port was already solid, but the team didn't just move on, they've continued to monitor issues and respond to feedback in a way that you don't always see with PC ports of console games. Every patch since release has felt deliberate, with real improvements that make the game feel more native to the platform. And this one, in particular, just reinforces that commitment. Now, for those of you wondering if the update changed anything visually or altered the performance balance on high-end systems, the answer is no big surprises there. If you're running a strong setup, say an RTX 4080 or an RX 7900 XTX, you'll still be cruising well above 100 FPS at 440p or even 4K with upscaling. The patch didn't introduce any new settings or visual downgrades, which is great. So if you had a custom config you were happy with before, you don't need to touch it. The only people who really need to adjust anything are Steam Deck users or those trying out the new FSR update to see what gives them the best quality to performance ratio. Now, I've seen a few players online mention that the patch subtly reduced input latency for some controllers, though it's not officially in the notes. It could just be placebo, but it might also be an indirect improvement from the Steam input fix. Either way, it's nice to see people reporting smoother responsiveness during parries and combat. Because, let's face it, Ghost of Tsushima's combat system relies so much on timing, and any little bit of delay can throw you off when you're trying to nail those perfect deflects or chain a stealth kill combo. Another thing worth touching on is how this update keeps the game's momentum alive even years after the original release. It's kind of wild to think that Ghost of Tsushima came out all the way back in 2020 on PlayStation, yet here we are in late 2025 and it's still being talked about and actively supported. The transition to PC has really breathed new life into it. People who never owned a PlayStation got to experience Jin's story for the first time, and now with deck verification, even more players can step into that world from anywhere. It's a testament to how timeless the game's design is. Its world, its atmosphere, the way it makes exploration feel meaningful. And every time a new patch lands, it's like a little reminder of just how special this game still is. If you're someone who hasn't played Legends yet, by the way, now's the perfect time to give it a shot. The matchmaking seems smoother after this update, probably because the standalone DLC setup resets the way lobbies are organized. You'll find games faster, and because it's free for all Director's Cut owners, the player pool is still active.